All right, audio friends, let's dig into LYD setup. We're going to use a Bluesound Node here, which would be the most common device I'm going to recommend you use with these. We've talked about this on the introduction of the speakers, and the beauty of these studio monitors are designed for near and midfield listening. So the great part about these is that in a garage, they're very smooth, very controlled. But there are some little tweaks you need to make in order to make these work. We're showing right here, I've got LYD 5s, LYD 48s, LYD 8s. They're all the same. I'll show you there's one switch difference on the LYD 48s. But in general, setup is going to be very simple. You can see this is all we need. So Bryce set up my little menu here. We got a power cord for each. We got a power cord for the Node. We've got an RCA to XLR connection, and we got 2 RCA cables, and that's it. Now, we'll do an aside video of how to set up a subwoofer if you wanted to do that, which I would recommend. But if you were just setting up a pair of speakers in the in the garage, this is what you would need. And I'm telling you, this is, outside of going to Dynaudio Core, I'm totally sold out for this whole studio monitor idea. Okay, so let's flip the LYD 5s around here. I don't want to slide my speakers around, but I want to show you how to set this up. Now, I will recommend to you, and I talked about this in the main video, LYD 5s are really good for a desk setup. You could use these in the garage if you wanted to get into Dynaudio entry level and save a few bucks. But I would recommend that we go with something much more stout. Even if you're doing these in a subwoofer, I like these. These are the exact speakers. These are physically the speakers that are from my desk in the podcast studio that I listen to daily. So these things are incredible. I have this set up with a Sub 9S, which is a single 9-inch subwoofer for these. It's perfect for these. And then I use a audio interface, the universal audio interface for that. So these are quite a bit less sophisticated. They don't have as sophisticated as DSP. These have a Class D amplifier, but it's a little different Class D amp than the Core stuff has. That's quite a bit more expensive. You're talking about the Core 48s are a $2,300 pair of speakers. Versus Core start at $4,000 a pair, so you would expect it to have additional features and amplification. So these speakers were designed, a lot of times entry level. These are as expensive as these are very, very entry level in the world of studio monitors. In the world of passive regular speakers, they're pretty expensive, pretty high end. But remember, we don't need an amplifier with these, so that eliminates the cost of having some sort of receiver in your system. And so we have our sensitivity setting. I'm going to suggest you just play with this. It depends on how your device, on your audio device, your interface is set up, and we'll do a separate setup direct video with the Bluesound Node. So I'm just going to gloss over that here today. But generally, you're going to run your input sensitivity at 0. It really doesn't hurt or help you to have it at minus or plus 6 dB. Just you just play with it and see what works best with the volume, with the way that whether you're using using some sort of other Bluetooth type device or something to connect to this. Like I used to use the Kali Audio Bluetooth device with this, but you could use any kind of Bluetooth receiver transmitter with these as well. And then you have your bass extension connection or adjustment. Now, I've left these flat, but theoretically, if you're taking this little speaker or the bigger speaker, and if you're listening to this and you're listening to primarily low volume, one of the hallmarks of the Dynaudio, the studio monitor line, is these are designed to not fatigue you. So designed to listen for 10, 12 hours at a time. And I know a lot of us are detailing for hours on end. You have speakers, music playing. It'd be nice if it's not fatiguing you. But if you're listening at low volume, this is where this bass extension adjustment comes in. You may want to add or subtract bass depending on your listening environment, depending on how loud you're listening. My guess in the garage, we're probably going to want to be pretty dynamic. So sometimes you're going to listen loud, sometimes you're going to listen to moderately. And so I would leave this switch at 0, but it depends. You may want to back off. So if you're listening to loud volumes all the time, you're going to want to back off and go to minus 10 hertz. If you're listening really, really low volume, you're going to want to add a little bass extension. It'll just shift. I believe this is called a tilt filter, where it will tilt the speaker, keep that same linearity and smoothness, because Dynaudio spent a lot of time on these, making sure that they are smooth and beautiful, and you have you have clarity at all volumes, especially low volumes. So these you'll be really surprised if you're listening to it moderate to low volume how great they are. And then you have your brightness adjustment, your sound balance DSP. And so the cores have multiple connection or multiple options for position, and their DSP is a bit more sophisticated. This is pretty simple. I'm going to set this to dark. You have dark, neutral, and bright. All this does is shifts or reduces, so if you're in dark mode, it'll take 1.5 dB out at 20 hertz and roll off there across the frequency response. And it will add 1.5 dB at 20 hertz and will roll up, in the upper, as you approach upper registries. So it shifts the sound toward less, I guess you could say, darker, or what they call dark, or less bright. And if you find that you have, most males have a difficult time with high frequencies, you would shift towards bright. I like them in dark, so you may want to start with neutral and kind of play with it. The other thing to keep in mind with these speakers when you're listening to them, with all Dynaudio speakers, there's a break-in period. They don't sound, the LYDs sound a lot better right out of the box than the cores do. The cores take 100 or 200 hours to really smooth out and really darken up, if you will. So keep that in mind, that you may start out at dark and then move it to neutral as they break in, because they do start to open up over time. And then you have your wall and free position. I almost always run it in free. Dynaudio a lot of times will give you they don't have it on these, but they'll give you like a plug for a lot of their passive bookshelf speakers in case you're putting it near a wall. I found that they almost always sound the best. As long as it's not too boomy, leave it in free. Even on my desk, and these speakers are only a few inches off the wall, I'm running them in free mode. I think they sound better. But if you find that you're getting some boomy bass or some resonance or something, you could switch the DSP over to wall and it will adjust accordingly. You have your on-off switch, your power switch. They will go into standby on their own, and they'll power up when they see signal. You have your power input, 3-pronged grounded power input, and then we have our 2 separate analog inputs. We have RCA and you have analog audio. XLR analog audio. I like to run XLR with these. But I'm going to show you how we have to adapt this, which is kind of negating the XLR functionality. But the advantage of XLR is you have a separate grounding pin, less potential for noise, plus it's a more secure connection. So if I can make an XLR connection on a speaker, I'd always prefer that if I have the choice. So what I'm going to do, let's set up these 5s here. I want to show you one more thing on the LYD 48. The LYD 48s are you're going to buy these left to right. It's the cores that have the left and right switch, and so you're not going to choose left or right switch. You're buying the speaker, so it's a different SKU, and we have it in our system. Where if you when you buy the speakers, you choose left speaker or right speaker. So just keep that in mind. The 5s and the 8s that are in the background there, there's no difference there. So I'll show you how simple this is. It's really awesome. So here's the back of a Bluesound Node, which I think is the perfect combination for a pair of studio monitors. So we're taking this consumer-based, high-res processor, if you will. This becomes our player, and our phone becomes our remote control. We're going to use the Blue OS app to send 24-bit, 192 kilohertz high-res audio. Whatever the highest res the recording was done, this will send then to the speakers via RCA to XLR. So all I'm going to do with this, I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to take a power plug, plug this in, and let's just stay on that same theme here. Let's take our power plug and plug it into and let's turn these around. Let's turn this speaker around for you so you can see it. I'm going to take my power plug. I would suggest turning it off first, get everything set up. I don't think you really have much of an issue or have to worry about it too much, but turn it off. I'm going to plug in. Make sure you're using the plug that was supplied. It's a grounded 3-prong plug. So there's one for that speaker, one for this speaker. Make sure that I have both speakers in the same mode, dark, and I have it set to 0, my sensitivity set to 0. So I have it flat. My standby mode is on auto. The LYDs have a good, probably 10-second delay to turn on, whereas the cores are instant. As soon as they sense a signal, they turn right on. So I would, depending on you play with that auto and standby settings, see which one you like most. We'll hang these down here. So this power cord here, so I'll plug those in a second. So that's our power connection. So each speaker has its own amplifier, Class D. The LYD 5s are a 50 watt per channel, 50 watt per driver, 50 watt for the tweeter, 50 watt for the woofer. The LYD 8s have 80 watts for the woofer, 80 watts, or 2 woofers, 80 watts for each woofer, and then 50 watts for the tweeter. And then the LYD 8s have a 80 watt for the woofer and 50 watt for the tweeter. We don't carry the LYD 7s. I don't think it makes sense. I think the LYD 8s are a much better choice. We talk about that in the main video. Then I'm going to make an adaptation here. Because I want to stay XLR, the other reason, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm cheating here. I didn't want to carry RCA cables if I could help it, and just carry one set. So I'm carrying XLRs, which work for all of our studio monitors, because the cores don't have an RCA connection. And I'm doing these little whips, these little attachments. So this is a monoprice. This is a monoprice RCA to XLR connection, and then this is a Metra XLR cable, which we sell in 3 feet, 6 feet, so 1 meter, 2 meter, 4 meter, 6 meter, and then they don't make it longer than that. So we do have a 35 footer or 50 footer from monoprice if we ever need that. So this is the right, actually, this is the left speaker. So let's go into our RCA out, left. I get that we are only, our weakest link here is that RCA connection. So we're not getting all the benefits of XLR outside of, really the main reason I'm doing this is so that I have this nice stout clip-in connection where it's just more solid. And so I don't think it hurts, especially if we're gonna make a longer run, like a 50-foot run or something like that. It certainly doesn't hurt to have XLR. Even though, again, the grounding pin, the third pin on this is basically not doing anything because of the way we're connecting this. So this is a 2 meter cable, and you get whatever you think you need. But the great part about setting up studio monitors like this is that you don't have to run speaker wires through the wall. If you were gonna pre-wire your garage, you'd wanna run XLR through the walls. You wanna buy these beforehand or run a conduit. But in most cases, you're gonna use your cabinet array and just run this. Like if I was doing the Sonic MSS Plus, I could just stick my speakers on top and run out all the cabling behind it with no issue. Plug this in. We would turn this around like so. Turn our speaker around, and that's an entire system. That's the extent of our setup. And I would highly suggest you get real familiar and friendly with some zip ties. And the other thing you can do with this setup, so I would call this our music heavy setup. The other thing you could do is you can run HDMI ARC. So you could run an ARC HDMI cable from your TV to here, but there's only one input. And you could run optical out of this if you wanted to, but generally speaking, I'm going to connect my network cable, maybe HDMI if I have a display like an OLED or an LCD in my garage, and that's my system. So I could do 2-channel or 2.1 with this setup here, and then I can listen to high-res audio. So that's setup, really simple. 2 XLR cables, 2 RCA to XLR cables, 3 power cords, which come with the devices, and that's 7 connections you have to make. Really, really simple, really easy. You can hit up my guys, support@obsessedgarage.com. If you get in trouble, we'll probably send you this video and say, hey, watch this. Make sure you've turned your speakers on. Make sure you turn the power switch on after you plug them in. Little simple things like that. I'm telling you, get yourself a set of LYD 48s or LYD 8s for your garage. Then we'll get you a subwoofer as well. Make sure to check out the subwoofer videos that we also have on the Shorts channel and on the website. Make sure you check those out, and you get yourself. I'm just awestruck every time I listen to this in the garage. I've since upgraded to the core stuff, but I had these speakers at OGHQ for a couple of years. This has been a life's pursuit for me to have Dynaudio in my garage, and I'm hoping to impart some of that on you. So thanks for watching, and thanks for your support. Hit up accessgarage.com and buy some speakers. I want to stock these in large quantities and outfit every garage in America. So see you soon.